Here's what we're going to do. We are going to play for you the Mike Murphy interview that he did with Senator Barry Goldwater. And in fact, if you have been listening to Murphy on a regular basis, you know that Art Bell was on the program, and he and Art started to talk about this interview. Mike said he had it. I mailed it to Art. Art played it on his nationally syndicated radio show. There have been a lot of people who have called in requesting that we play it. So since Mike's not here, here is Mike in tape form only. I don't know if we're going to talk again, but if not, have a great Labor Day, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, I'm with the legend. Would you like to be called the legend?
Sometimes.
Barry Goldwater at his house. What do we see as we look out this window here, Senator?
Well, you can see most of all of the Salt River Valley. All that because of the Rio Salado, which is the Salt River, and it now has water in it. It used to run when I was a little boy, but now it's dry. Well, it's the first time water's been in it in about 30 years.
Boy, this rain is incredible.
We've had more rain in 2 months than we normally get in a year.
It's just beautiful. The desert's going to be beautiful this year.
The desert will be, it was already getting beautiful.
How long have you been out of Washington now?
I think 8 years. 7 or 8, I forget.
Did you miss the excitement and the adrenaline and the
I don't
whole
miss
business?
a damn thing about Washington, except I had some good friends back there. I enjoyed the beauty of the city, but the politics, no. When I went there, it was a real thrilling experience to be there because of the what we call giants that we had. But when I left there, all people were there for was to get reelected to make more money.
I remember John Dean in the Watergate
I talked to him
said,
yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah.
He said it to you. Somebody asked him what he'd say to young people. And he'd said, I'd tell them not to come here.
Well, I don't. I think young people should get into politics. And John Dean roomed with my oldest son in a military academy in Virginia. In fact, I told him just the other day, he's been suing, I think he's suing one of the big broadcasting companies for remarks that they made about his wife, Maureen.
Yeah.
Mo used to go with my oldest boy.
Is that right?
Yeah. So we're quite close.
I still see the old film of you saying, I talked to Nixon and told him what to do. They run that a lot. And he didn't do what you told him.
I don't have much use for Nixon. I don't even talk to him.
But you told him to get on there and apologize and
I just told him he ought to tell the American people just what the hell was going on. But he never did.
Senator, what the hell's going on in this country right now, do you think?
Well, this country's been living over 200 years. We've lived through some good times. We've lived through some bad times. We are in a dangerous time now because of the deficit. We actually owe more money in this country. All the total debt, what you owe and I owe and the governments of everything owe, more debt than we are worth, and counting all the mines and trees and lakes and fish. Everything we have is not enough to pay off the debt. Everybody's debt. Now, will we get clear? That's the big question. And my own feeling is that there's not enough guts in the Congress to do the things we have to do to clear the debt.
Can we do it? Is what we're hearing some of these programs and packages and taxes, is it going to make any difference, do you think?
Well, what it's going to take is more taxes and greatly reduce spending. And if we have to say, that takes courage on the part of the Congress. And I don't think it's going to happen because you look at the big cities. Now, out here in the West, we're not too troubled with it yet. But you take the big cities in the East, and from a quarter to a third of the people are on welfare. You're going to get somebody in the Congress to vote against that when you've got millions of your citizens collecting money that the rest of us pay? No.
Are we going to a two-class rich and poor in this country? Rich and just the rich and the poor?
No, I don't believe that, because what was it some famous Frenchman said when they said, let's take all the rich people's money and we won't have to raise taxes? And the answer was, if you take all the rich people's money, in 2 weeks they'll have it all back.
Yeah, right.
And that's the way it is here. That we have people in this country that like to work, and they like to get paid. And there'll always be those people. Now, there'll always be people who don't want to work and enjoy being bums, and they will have people who can't work. We take care of the people who can't work, but I don't believe in taking care of the people who just won't work.
Do you think we'll ever get people off welfare?
No, I don't think so. Unless what Clinton told them the other day comes about. He said in 2 years you're either off welfare or you're working. Now, if he can push that through, yes.
What about this last election? Wasn't it bizarre? Have you ever seen anything like that?
Oh, I wouldn't call it bizarre. Bush, I don't think, wanted to win. He didn't try to win. He never called me once to help him.
And you're a friend of his.
Oh, very, very close friend.
Why wouldn't he have called you?
We don't know, and I don't particularly care. During his first campaign, he sent jets out here to take me back to states in the East that needed help, and I would go back and help him. And he won. Not just me, but everybody that helped him win. But now, well, Clinton's a young man.
Well, do you think Bush didn't talk to you because he didn't want to win? If he did want to win, he'd have talked to you?
Everything he did indicates to me he did not want to win. Not just me. I'm just one person. But I helped him once. He never asked me to help him again. And then he fell prey to this oddballs in the religious right that...
What do you think of those people?
Well, I don't think much of them. They're using the word of God to advance themselves and make money.
Pat Robertson?
Oh, Robertson, the whole...
Do you think he's dangerous?
Well, I don't think he's dangerous unless that 7-Eleven or whatever club it is he has can put together enough money to make him a contender, and a man like that as president would be disastrous for the country. The idea of religion and politics not mixing is a wise decision made by our founding fathers.
Do you remember when Kennedy ran? And they said the Catholic Church will be running this country. And
well, the Catholic Church never did run this country, and they never would.
No.
The Catholics, they don't work that way.
But now I remember that campaign.
Oh, I do too.
Do you think there was anything to the Kennedy assassination? You think there was...
I think some nut wanted to kill him, and they killed him.
You think it was Oswald?
Yeah. Well, I have to assume it was Oswald, and they picked a pretty good team of people to make the decision. Some of the best men we had in this country.
Did you ever know Hoover?
I never knew him. I met him once at a racetrack in California, Del Mar, that my wife used to go to every afternoon, and once in a while I'd go because I don't particularly...
I love this one here, Turf Paradise. We go every day.
Well, I don't know much about horses, except to ride them.
But you met him. Have you seen the books that are out about him now?
I've read about the book that they had written about him. That's hard to believe that a man like that would be gay, but on the other hand,
who knows?
Who knows? My God, the woods are full of them.
There's an awful lot that we're finding out now. It seems that we find these things 20, 30 years later that happen, and we say, why didn't we know that then?
You never know those things.
And it's like you're so popular now. I don't know whether you realize how popular you are. But I think if you would have been in the last election, you could win whenever you wanted to.
Well, if I couldn't have beat either one of those, I'd have quit.
But there's all these conspiracy stories now are coming out, and the greatest one of all. And now I don't know whether this is folklore or whether this is true, but I've been a flying saucer fan since I was a little kid. I used to know Major Donald Kehoe. His mother used to live next door to us. So back in the 40s, he came out with Flying Saucers Are Real and all these books. So I'm a little kid, and I've been with this all my life. And maybe this is folklore, but the story is you tried to find something out about the Roswell crash.
No.
Is that true?
I know that at Wright-Patterson Field, the Air Force had, and I have to assume it's still there, had a room I think they called the Blue Room or the Green Room, in which was assembled all of the information that the Air Force had put together on UFOs. So I called my friend Kurt LeMay one day, and I said, what about this, Kurt? Can I see the stuff in there? Boy, he cussed me out in every four-letter word.
Do you remember what he said?
I can't repeat it. He said, don't ever ask me that again, and don't ever talk about it to anybody. I don't want to hear you ever mention it. Now, I can't say, I won't sit here and say I believe in UFOs, but I can tell you this. There's about 2 billion planets in this universe that we know about. How many other universes are there? We don't know. Nobody can tell me that this is the only planet of 2 billion on which there are living things like people. And I'm a firm believer that other planets can do the things we do and probably do them better and more. I've been down to Kitt Peak several times near Tucson, where they have one observatory that does nothing but listen to these rather strange signals. And I'm a radio operator, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're talking to each other, but I'm not going to tell you they're not.
Do you think that some aspect of our arm of our government knows what is going on and they just don't tell us what it is?
I think that's true. I don't know whether it would be the Air Force or whether it would be some of the satellite observatories up in Colorado. And I work satellites with my radio. I listen to satellite television right here. Somebody knows a lot more than we've been told. And I don't discount these stories that you hear that some men or women saw things flashing in the sky. I have a couple of airline pilot friends that have seen them. And I don't say that an airline pilot's a nut.
But isn't this something, the greatest story of all time? And
someday we'll find out.
Did you know Jackie Gleason?
Jackie who?
Gleason. The great one, Jackie Gleason.
Oh, Gleason, yeah, sure.
He tells a story that Nixon came to him one night and told him he was going to take him somewhere and take him in and show him this stuff. And they got him in a mountain somewhere. And there was a UFO and 6 bodies, and he came back to his wife.
No, I don't believe it.
Have you ever heard that story?
No, I've heard them. I've heard a lot of those. We hear them here quite often.
You're an Air Force man.
Oh, yeah, I've been flying 70 years. I've been a pilot.
Have you heard this Mach 7 or Mach 8 now?
Sure. The day the war ended, I was having lunch in Hollywood with some of the engineers and designers from Lockheed. And they were talking about Mach 4, Mach 5 then. I remember the fellow's name, Hal Hubbard. He's dead now. Kelly Johnson, dead now. Designed all of Lockheed's aircraft. And they were talking about high Mach numbers. Mach was the German that discovered the speed of sound. At sea level, I think it's 714 miles an hour. And the higher you go, the lower it goes. I have flown an airplane at Mach 3 at 83,000 feet.
Oh, boy.
And so when you're talking high Mach numbers, yes, I expect to see an aircraft of some type fly within the next 10 years or sooner at above Mach 6 that'll fly from the United States to Tokyo in an hour.
But didn't we think that would be impossible just not that long ago?
Oh,
to
no,
go that fast?
I'm convinced, and have been most of my life, that there's nothing that man can't do if he wants to.
If he sets a goal and says, let's do that. When we went to the moon, what did you think of Kennedy?
Well, I was very surprised to hear Kennedy announce that in his joint session. But I said, if man says it can be done, it can be done.
But we did it.
Sure we did.
And wouldn't it be great if we do the same thing and say, let's go to Mars?
Well, we will probably get a human being on Mars. But if the Russians go with us, we'll get on to Mars with some kind of equipment that can photograph and send back to us what Mars looks like and what the climate's like. We know pretty much those things now.
Have you heard the story of the face on Mars that the discovery that photographed it?
I take the magazine of the National Space Society. And this magazine will tell you all those things that they're talking about.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is. I'm a scientific nut.
Wouldn't it be great if, I know I think about this, I love this new age of technology, if I could just be born today.
Yeah.
Would you like to do that and just see what's going to happen in the next 100 years?
I remember what the past president of Motorola, he's now dead, he made a speech, a graduation speech at Arizona State University about 5 or 6 years ago, and he said he'd like to be living 50 years from now because in the next 50 years, mankind will make more advances than he's made in 7,000 years.
Isn't that something?
I believe it.
Well, yeah. Well, can you imagine what was going on in this country when you were a kid?
Well, I can remember when there wasn't a paved street in Phoenix, when my father bought the second automobile in Arizona. And when I learned to fly 70 years ago, I could fly 80 miles an hour. And now I have flown myself at 2,250 miles an hour. And we have aircraft that can fly much faster than that. And the only trouble is I'm so old now they won't let me fly.
Wouldn't it be fun to be like the Phoenix?
Yeah.
The ashes would come back.
Burn again.
Yeah. Did you ever think that you'd see what we saw happen in the Soviet Union?
I never thought I would see it, but I knew it was going to happen.
You did?
I know it for one simple reason. I would start by saying, did you ever catch a bird in your hand and the bird tried to get away? Did you ever catch a little animal? The animal tried to get away. Why? Animals want to be free. We're an animal. And you cannot say to a man or a woman, you can't do this because the government says no. first thing you know, the people are going to tell the government to go to hell.
Yeah.
And I knew that was going to happen, but I never thought it would happen in my lifetime. And now we have Red China and one or two South African countries with communism. And I made this prophecy just yesterday at Arizona State. When Red China gets rid of communism as a government form, I'll give them 20 years, and they'll be the world's leading economic power and military power, because they're free, and they're brilliant people.
There's some kind of a prediction of a yellow race ruling the world or something.
Oh, well...
Have you heard that?
Yeah, well,
is that possible? Would that be possible?
Well, yes, it's possible, and it's going to happen.
But it could have been Attila the Hun they were talking about.
No, what we're going to see is like, the prophecy is that in California, for example, by the year 2030, there'll be more Asian and Spanish spoken than English. And I think that's going to happen. We have, while we're once a part of Mexico, we don't speak much Spanish here, but there's a lot of Asians spoken here now because they're coming in here from Asia. And the perimeter of the Pacific has become the great economic focal point of the world, and we can forget about Europe. It's the circumference of the Pacific that's going to do it.
What do you do with this state? If you were governor of California with all those people, what are there, 30 million people there now?
Well, you just have to put up with them.
What do you do with this beautiful city?
When I was born here, there was 10,000 people in this whole valley that we're in, 700,000 acres, and now there's nearly 3.5 million. And by the year 2020 along in there, this will be the third or fourth biggest concentration of people in the United States.
Why didn't anybody ever talk about it and say, we got too damn many people?
You can't stop that.
But we don't seem to address that. And we're just
yes, they've addressed it. Oregon tried to pass a law that would prohibit further other people coming in the state.
Tom McCall.
Yeah, and they stopped that. And you can't stop people coming in here. I think they're coming into this right area here about 2,500 a week.
Boy.
And this little school that I visit and address once in a while, when I first knew it had 200 students. Now it has 45,000. And we're looking to 62,000 very shortly. So, overpopulation is a major problem of America. We just don't know what to do about it.
Let me ask you, did you go back to that campaign, the dirtiest trick campaign ever against you? That was the beginning of dirty tricks. That was the worst thing I ever saw happen. How did that happen?
You mean that
thing with the little kid?
Well, I'm an old advertiser. I've spent millions of dollars advertising my business, and that was a clever ad. Very, very clever.
But it just ruined you, didn't it?
Well, it didn't hurt me a bit. I think it helped me. But it damn near ruined Johnson. He only showed it once. And
is that all that ran?
The only time I ever heard of it.
Is that right?
He pulled it.
Huh.
And it was clever, very clever. I wished I had thought something like that.
Oh, boy.
It didn't bother me.
Who did that spot?
Bill Moyer.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
That's the only thing that gets me upset with him. He pontificates as if he was a Jesus Christer. And anybody that could say that he was proud to know Lyndon Johnson is no good in my book.
So a friend of ours always talks about a letter to the editor that went to the Chicago Tribune. Are you familiar with that? It said if you vote for Goldwater, you'll get higher taxes, riots in the streets, and the escalation in Vietnam.
Yeah.
So I voted for Goldwater, and we got them.
That's right. I've heard about that.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any difference.
What would you do if you could do it over again? Would you do anything different?
Running for president?
The whole political career.
No, I'd go into politics as I did. My whole family's been involved in Democrat politics in this state ever since it was a territory. My uncle founded the Democrat Party in the territory and wrote the Constitution of the state. My mother was a Republican, so I became a Republican. First one we ever had. And I ran for the Senate, and I had no right to win it. My opponent never came home. He was overconfident, and I beat him. And that's like shooting craps. You get a 7 sometimes, and you get an 11 sometimes.
Do you think when 30 years ago we never knew anything about candidates, now we hear they're in all your laundry? Do you think it's keeping good people out of it? They say, hey, I did something when I was a kid. I don't want nobody to find out about that.
Well, no. I think you can truthfully say that outside of men like Tom Jefferson and George Washington and Abe Lincoln and a few more like that, we've never gotten the best men. The best men don't want to get into politics.
Yeah.
I could name you 20 men in this town who would have been better senators than I've been. But they didn't choose to run. And I did, won. So the country's run by people. They're not always the best people.
What about this administration? Do you see this as compared to Carter at all?
No, I think Clinton, being a young man, will follow in the footsteps of other young men who have saved the world or saved a government because of their youth. Now, Nixon was young, Kennedy was young, Carter was so-so. I think Clinton has a chance to become a good president. I want to give him 5, 6, 7 months before I can make a judgment.
What about President Reagan? Do you see him?
No, I talked to him once in the blue moon. I think he'll go down as a pretty good president. I don't think he was the smartest one we ever had, but I think he tried, and he could get his message across to the people.
What about you now? Would you go if an agent came to you and say, I've got all over the country now for you?
Oh, I just wrote my old agent yesterday and asked him the question. I said, I'm sitting here doing nothing. I don't particularly like to travel.
Yeah.
If I could line up, say, 10 speeches a year for a good price, because I'll tell you, when you retire, that money it gets hard to get. Yes, I would entertain something like that. I have a wife who works all day. She goes to work about 7 in the morning and comes home that time at night. And we're good friends. We don't see much of each other.
Do you know how hot you really are right now? That people all around the country are talking about you and saying, he was right. He was right. He was right. He was right. And it's so strange that 30 years later, they're saying, Senator Goldwater's right.
Look at Herbert Hoover, one of the greatest men we ever had in this country. And people didn't appreciate him until he'd been gone. They're going to do... Eisenhower is becoming more and more of a good president.
But you never heard about it.
Well, he does now. He had that great ability to put people together.
Yeah.
And people say, who's the best president we've had? I said, Harry Truman.
Did you know Harry?
I met him once in northern Arizona, and I met him once in the White House, just casually. But I admired him because I didn't like his politics particularly, but if he gave you an answer at 7 o'clock at night, he'd give you the same answer at 7 o'clock the next morning.
Yeah.
Which is not typical.
Yeah. Was he as good as they got presidents?
I think so.
Did people used to compare you to him? People would compare you with Truman.
With who?
Harry, yeah.
Well, that's a kind of a compliment.
What are you going to do now? What would you like to do the next 2 or 3 years?
Oh, I don't know. I've been working up here on my papers and my pictures. I've been a photographer. I lecture over at Arizona State. An occasional speech when one comes handy.
Is the politics still in your blood? Does it run hot?
Oh, it never gets out of your blood. Once you've been in it, it never leaves you. I don't practice it, and I don't particularly want to have anything to do with it.
If it's chipped or cracked or crazed, come on down. You'll be amazed. It's the first annual Labor Day Paint Splash at HQ. You'll find incredible prices on paints, on stains, on sealants, on caulks, plus a huge line of contractor quality painting tools and accessories. And just to show you we're serious, we're giving an extra 15% off all Red Devil caulks, including both lifetime and specialty caulks. And that's not all, because HQ carries nearly a dozen lines of brand name paints and stains. And this special event is your chance to really look them over and compare. Remember, HQ is the place for all your other home improvement needs, too, with over 40,000 items for your home, all under one roof, all at the guaranteed lowest prices. So paint that room, stain that deck, refinish that old rocking chair by heck. It's the Labor Day Paint Splash.